Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I'm Iris and I'm going to take you through the astrology of the week ahead. So, this is our last full week of December 2024. We are moving through this week and then we're going to be in 2025. Noting that this is also the week of the holidays, and there are some big cosmic conversations going on this week. So just knowing that, we are talking. So mostly what I'm going to focus on is a square that's going on between Saturn and Jupiter. And we're building into this opposition between Mars and Pluto, which is going to be exact as we enter the new year on the 2nd. But these are big conversations. There's a lot of energy with both of them. So we go into this week knowing that there could be some tension. There could be some sensitivity. There could be some blind spots getting pushed. And what happens when our blind spots gets pushed is we usually are quite reactive. And so just knowing that we're heading into that, we can pull back a little bit. We can really up the self-care and the rest, especially during, sometimes for a lot of us, the holidays are already a heightened situation. This, sometimes it doesn't matter if we are seeing family or not seeing family, if we come from problematic memories of holidays, if we have grief, if there's so many different stories that are usually complicated and overlapping that can then complicate the holiday season. And of course, that can ride along with joy and with love. And this is why life is messy. And this week is a little bit messy. Okay. So just knowing that we're going through this. So the first piece is, so I'm talking about the 23rd through the 29th. I don't think I even said that yet. I just jumped right into it with you. How are you doing? Take a moment, check in with yourself, check in, maybe hand on heart, take a breath or so, take a beat. This is your time to listen to this or watch this, and just, we're going to go through the week, okay? So we come into this week, the 23rd, and we are almost at the exact square of Saturn and Jupiter. So Jupiter is retrograde in Gemini. Saturn is direct in Pisces. This is the second time that we've been in this opening square between these two. The first time being in August of this year. And so we are really moving with this. So Saturn, this is happening at 14 degrees of Pisces is where Saturn is, and that Jupiter is retrograde at 14 degrees of Gemini. And, this is most likely a push and pull. Saturn wants to take us. It wants to take us through what we have to purge, what we have to come into alignment with, what we have to maybe become a little bit more realistic about. Realistic so that we can have more structure in embodying our Piscean realms. Realistic so that we are talking about ultimately spirituality here. We are coming into alignments so that we can be more strongly in alignment for that spiritual path that we're opening to, that we're bringing and creating more space. And the way that we usually create more space is that we purge. I am literally purging this little place that has been our home right now, as I'm purging and getting rid of things. And then, wow, there can really be so much space, especially when you live in a little space, the more that we get rid of, right? But in order to create that spaciousness, we do need to do some purging, and or we just need to, like when we're creating spaciousness in the body, we need to create it with mindful awareness and breath and slowing down, and gentleness is usually how we create that spaciousness in the body. And this Saturn, it is working on the emotional level. It is working on the physical level. It is working on the spiritual level and the psychological. It's working on all the levels. And wherever you have 14 degrees of Pisces in your chart is where Saturn's working with you. And it's been retrograde. It's direct now. It wants to take us into the future, and bang, it squares a Gemini retrograde. It squares Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. And here, that Jupiter is big energy as well. That Jupiter is in a process of realignment, but it's more of a reevaluation, a reinterpretation. It's trying to understand our life in the Gemini part of our chart and psyche in a new way so that we will be able to move on, so that we can kind of refine some of our projects or some of our energy, really what we've been thinking about, how we've been communicating. And so there's a square, but it's not just this square. This week, Mercury is part of the conversation too. So Mercury is moving ahead in Sagittarius, and it's going to come into a T-square. It's going to be opposite that Jupiter. And so that's going to be exact on the 26th. So that's why this whole week we are working with the square between Saturn and Jupiter, and then we have the opposition between Mercury and Jupiter. And Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, and it's in Sagittarius. Okay. And so Sagittarius is aligned with Jupiter. So we've got this kind of already a little bit uncomfortable conversation going on between these two, and now it brings Saturn. Now, how do we work with this? We slow down, and we absolutely don't push. We don't push to try and understand. We don't push to try and express ourselves. If we're pushing, especially with the fact that this is also going on as Mars is coming into its opposition with Pluto, sometimes we're in it and we do have to push. Sometimes we're in it and we're just so caught in that moment, or we've got to push our way through. Usually in this energy, that's happening with our words and also in our thoughts. And so maybe we do, but whenever we can, we pull back, we take a beat, we go for a walk by ourselves or with our trusted dog companion or whoever your trusted companion is, and we realign. Because what's going on underneath whatever static is coming up in the moment of this week is a deep realignment. And when we can settle down there, when we can kind of either make our way through or witness this through the static, which is always surface level, we get into what's really coming into alignment. And here this week, it could actually be pretty deep. And this is most likely parts of our life that we've been working on for a while. This opposition between Mercury and Jupiter, we've been working with this in November and December. And so now Mercury's direct, that Jupiter is of course retrograde, but there is some movement. There is some understanding. There is some realigning. And Saturn joining says it's not just a little bit of a realignment. It is so that we can move literally into 2025 and beyond and take our lives where we want to take them, manifest what we want to manifest, because we're working on getting the structures and the acceptance of our limits that we need. If we're getting stuck in a lot of static this week, Saturn is talking to us and we might not be respecting our limits. What do you need? Do you need to rest? Do you need time alone? Do you need to go have fun? Whatever it is, but this is a week to really respect our limits. And those limits are talking to us about our spirituality. They're talking to us about this infinite belonging that we are all part of in every breath of our life. And our mind takes us away from remembering that. And our mind this week is a little bit occupied because of this opposition between Jupiter and Mercury. And there could be a lot of thoughts. And then those thoughts could feel like they're getting stopped. And they could be getting stopped by life or by situations. And if they're getting stopped, we want to pay attention to what is the force that feels like it actually is calling me. It's actually saying, hey, look over here. Hey, come over here. Because there's something to look at. There's something to dip into, feel into, sink into. This is the energy of deep listening. The mind usually has to be trained into sinking into deep listening, because the mind wants to get carried off by the static and it wants to attach itself to it, and then it wants to blame and it wants to create all these stories. And this energy says, no, we go deeper. That Jupiter is retrograde. It wants to take us into the abundance that happens when we do bring discernment to our lives, when we do slow down and say, okay, there's all these plans, there's all this happening, but what is most important right now? And be with what is most important. And it might not be what we've committed to. It might not be what we said we'd go to. It might not be what we organized our day or even our holiday around. But if there's something that's really important for you to be with it, when you can quiet down and go through the static and dip into that kind of deeper way of knowing, that's what we want to be with. And as that's happening, we are building in this opposition between Mars in Leo, who is retrograde, and Pluto, who is in Aquarius. Okay, so this is the second of our 3 oppositions. It will not be exact this week. It will be exact January 2nd as we move to January 3rd. So welcome to 2025. We will have our opposition, but we're building this week, okay? And when we get to the end of this week, around that 29th, we're within the 2-degree orb. We're really in it. And so just remembering that this is Mars retrograde in Leo. Mars is going on a journey. It's going back into Cancer. It is wanting to literally have us step back and re-embody how we align and own and think about and feel, this is fire, our drive, like our drive to create, to be a creative being. Leo is about being a creative being. And Mars is how we work with that, how we manifest that, how we get active with that, how we manifest joy. And this opposition to Pluto says, we've got something to learn about that. We've got something to learn about what we've been prioritizing in our energy, in our drive, in our action. We've got something to really peel back the layers and see that there's some authentic calling that I do need to change part of myself for. Because who I was 10 years ago, or how I was taught to go out into the world and show up, how I was taught to be in relationship to my creative being, I'm not in that environment anymore. I'm not in the same relationships. I'm not in the, this is the ongoing work of maturing and growing older. And even if we're with people that we were with 20 years ago, we're different. They're different. And this energy is about our authenticity coming through. Now that's ultimately how it's wanting to work with us. That Pluto is talking to us from our Aquarius part of ourself, and that Mars is talking to us from our Leo part of ourself. And there's this conversation going on within the psyche. But that conversation that's going on within the psyche, that's going on while Saturn's talking to Jupiter and Mercury, well, that's happening in every single person. And every single person, conscious or unconscious, aware and awakened or not, aware of embodiment or not, is embodying all of this energy this week. And so when we're all moving through these big cosmic conversations, especially when Mars and Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter, this is, wires can get crossed, blind spots can get triggered. We can react, others can react, especially with the Mars and the Pluto. Okay, so if you do find yourself getting pulled in to especially a relational kind of reactive trigger storm, we want to step out of it. With this energy, it's not really, sometimes it's productive because we catch ourselves and we say, wow, what is going on? Okay, wow, all of this is coming up. Wow, maybe I'm projecting old stuff onto this situation. Maybe the person here is projecting old stuff onto me. Usually when there's a trigger storm, there's projection coming from both sides. And it's like we can just chill. We can recognize that this is not about that other person. This is about me. This is about my Mars realigning itself to my creative joy so that on a deep soul level that's so deep it's actually unconscious, but right now it's activated and there is something becoming conscious, there's something that wants to be recognized. There's something that wants to be kind of stepped back so that I can come into a more authentic relationship with myself. And this is in process. We don't know where it's going. We just know that there's going to be situations coming up and we're going to be in it and we're going to see it and we're going to feel it. And ultimately, this is about empowerment. Mars opposite Pluto is about empowerment. Empowerment for the new authentic self, the new creative joy. Not the one that's seeking validation, not the one that just wants to feel like they're loved and belong at the cost of kind of hiding over their true desires. That's the old stuff that Pluto's like, nah, no, it's not gonna serve us where we're going. And so usually when we have that old kind of grisly stuff coming up, it's karmic stuff, Pluto, and it usually comes up from being triggered. But it comes up and it's like, oh, I can see this. Oh, I don't need this. Oh, I'm going to let that go. I'm going to choose not to get too pulled in. I'm going to go this way. And I'm going to see what my heart is really asking for, because Mars is in Leo retrograde and the heart has probably got some messages for you this week. Okay. Moving into 2025. So these are some big energies. There absolutely is, opportunity for realignment, for understanding, for insights. That Mercury talking to this Jupiter and Saturn can absolutely bring really lovely insights about how we're expanding. Yet they might come from directions we weren't totally expecting. The insights might come from some of the crossed wires and then kind of witnessing what's going on and being like, oh, this is what's going on, or, oh, this is what I need right now. In the moment, it's just like when we do a breath meditation where we say, oh, right, I was just like plotting the next 2 weeks and I'm supposed to be here sitting and breathing. So I'm going to redirect my attention. That's what those meditations train us for, is so that it's like, oh, wow, I just got pulled into this drama with my friend or my partner and my mom. And yeah, like there's stuff, but really, I just want to be listening to what my heart needs right now. And maybe I actually just needed some comfort. Or maybe I just needed to be alone. Or maybe I didn't need to be here. Or maybe I really need to ask this person this question that I want to ask them. And I'm going to do that now. It's about honesty. And that Pluto in Aquarius, we're all on long journeys of learning about deep layers of honesty that like we didn't even know we could be that honest with ourselves, let alone with other people. But the beauty of evolutionary and archetypal and embodied astrology is that we realize that we're never alone in this journey, because we're like, the archetypes are alive and they're part of us and they're supporting us, and we're not alone. Okay, we are, Saturn is doing this work with us right now, talking to Jupiter, ideally so that we can become more and more aware of how we are never alone, of how we are all part of this incredible belonging that is Pisces. And Neptune is going to take us through those final degrees of Pisces 2025, and it's going to show us this so that we can go start lives with that awareness of belonging and do things that we could never do before. Because when we know that we belong, when we're not just being driven by whether it's old trauma or just honestly what we are socialized to believe through the mainstream about the value of success and this really fierce competitive comparison that social media just breeds by simply having all of these visual images coming at us every day, add into that, it's all built into a capitalist consumer society, even when it's supposedly about authenticity. It's a lot. It's a heck of a lot. Okay. And yet this Pisces energy is about us learning that we're not alone. We are part of something that's so much bigger than our own story, yet our own story is part of it. And that paradox is just this beauty of being alive. And so we can dip into that this week. And I think I've got like a few minutes before that little blue in the sky behind it just goes black. So I'm going to take that as my sign to stop chatting with you. It's been lovely to see you. I'm sending out lots and lots of love as you journey through this last full week of 2024. Of course, everything that I just talked about, this is what's pulling us into the December 30th new moon in Capricorn, which I will make a separate video of. And I will see you then, probably. Okay, be well. Bye-bye.